Welcome to By Subject, a Silicon Slopes marketing and brand podcast. I'm here with Jonathan Tanner, CMO of Nightingale Education Group, and a really amazing man.
Well, thank you.
Welcome. So tell me a little bit about you, your background, where you grew up, and maybe your first role in marketing.
Yeah, so originally I'm from Arizona, from Glendale, Arizona, and moved to Utah before high school, and went to high school here, grew up here, call Utah my home, love Utah. I got into marketing in maybe not a traditional way. In college, I was a biologist.
You were?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. I was studying to be a dentist. I was going to be pre-dent and went all the way to graduation, could not get into dental school.
Where did you go to college?
BYU.
You went to BYU?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went to BYU and was one of a lot of white males trying to get into dentistry.
At BYU, especially.
Yeah, at BYU. My first role in differentiation.
Yeah.
My first lesson, I should say, in differentiation of you can't look like everybody else.
Yeah.
And anyways, couldn't get into dental school, left college with just no idea what I wanted to do. And I had grown up in an environment with my dad and my brothers it was heavy into business and finance, and decided that I was going to just go take a job at the biggest company that would hire me, and chose Enterprise Rent-A-Car out of college.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
That's
I did.
right. I remember that. Yeah.
And so went and worked for them for about 5 years. Moved up to a manager, managed branches. It wasn't my jam.
Yeah, my brother did that, and he still talks about how amazing the learning experience was there.
Yeah, what you learn is incredible.
Did you do that here in the state?
No, I went up to Idaho.
You went up to Idaho?
So my wife is from Idaho, from Pocatello. And so we went home for to her home briefly, and we're in Nampa, just outside of Boise.
Cool.
Where her parents spent some of her time. And anyways, so I was engaged at Enterprise, kind of decided this isn't my future. This wasn't my purpose.
I got to imagine a lot of people about 3 years in realize that's not your purpose.
You got to commit.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a commitment time frame where you got to be all in, or it's time to go. But that was when that's when I started my very first company called Assurance Financial. And I briefly, for a couple of months, followed in my dad's footsteps in the finance world. And I sold key person life insurance.
Okay. What years was this?
This was in 2010.
Okay.
The beginning parts of 2010, that year, I got my life insurance license and sold key person life insurance.
Here in the state or up in Idaho still?
I sold 5 policies.
Okay.
And they were to the some of the original founders of Nightingale College, which we'll talk about later.
Okay.
So that was my introduction to them. So,
and how did you meet them?
So there was a group of finance people in Utah that were looking at new startups, and were helping these new startups connect with finance.
Okay.
And I was coming to Utah and had sat on a couple of round tables with them because I was known for sales and kind of looked at it from a sales perspective.
Sure.
And that's originally this group, these original owners of Nightingale got in with this group, and they needed key person life insurance. And so they bought 5 policies from me. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. So that was my introduction into Assurance Financial, which this is an epic failure as a business altogether. But
5 policies.
5 policies.
Yeah.
But I made more. I will say I made more money in 5 policies than I had in a year's income at Enterprise. So failure, not failure, but it was
learning experience.
It was a learning experience.
Yeah.
But this was my introduction into maybe running an organization, and it gave me insights into some of the things that companies need from a marketing standpoint.
Okay.
And I met this idea. It was a concept back then, this concept of Nightingale College. And they asked me if I would come and help them set up their admissions because of my sales reputation at the time. And I didn't know if Nightingale was going to make it. The idea, the concept was kind of cool, but I didn't know. So at the same time in 2010, when I started to go and work for Nightingale, I started 2 other companies. One of them was an internet marketing company, and the other one was an app development company. And one of them was called Golden Services, and one of them was called Prop Developers.
How often do you mess those up?
It was
at least that first year.
Yeah, it was crazy. I knew one of these would be successful.
Yeah.
And I would do Nightingale during the day, and I'd come home, I'd have dinner, I was with the kids. And then at night, because I was really exploring outsourcing.
Yeah.
And in 2010, it was pretty new to connect to people in Romania and Pakistan and China. And at night, because they're on the off hours, I would work until like 1 and 2 in the morning with them doing projects, either on internet marketing or in the app world.
And so you started your own companies were you sourcing the deals and doing the sales for those apps and marketing companies here?
Yeah, they were company apps on Prop Developers, and that was for about 6 to 7 months before we decided to build our first internal app.
Okay.
And we decided on this is crazy, but we decided on this app called Parkour Free Running.
Oh, amazing.
It was a 3D running app, and it blew up. It was like a massive success. It had like 2 million downloads. It was the #1 arcade app in the iTunes store in Europe. And it was an incredible project that basically introduced me to something. I don't know. I couldn't keep the project going. I watched as millions of kids all over the world. I was contacted through the night on our Facebook page of people saying, "Hey, I'm engaged in this app and I'm loving this." And the whole project, the whole experiment was to basically increase engagement.
Yeah.
It was quite an unethical experiment.
Sure.
To try to say to children, our job is to capture your attention, or adults, endlessly.
Right. That's the whole goal of all of those apps.
It was pretty dark. It was pretty dark.
And so were you utilizing both the app development company and the marketing company to generate those 2 million, 3 million downloads?
No.
Okay.
What I had discovered, and this is from my science background all the way back in school, was I was very adamant about when we engaged in anything, I would deep dive into the study of those things. So when we got into the app market back then, if you got a certain number of downloads in any one day, you would trigger a marketing piece that Apple would sponsor for you. So you were like the top new app.
Right.
Then you were the top 100 app. Then you were the top 50, and then 10, and then 1. And if you could ride these waves, Apple would basically take your app, your product to the next level.
Yeah.
If it was a good enough product, it could ride the next wave.
Yeah.
So all you had to do was trigger the first wave.
Mm.
And so I partnered with the American Parkour Association, and they had 70,000 members at the time. And all we had to do was close 10% of them in the first weekend. Mm. And it took off the first wave. It cost us about $100. And we rode this to 2 million downloads.
Wow. And so you said that you couldn't keep it going. So did you shut it down, or did you sell it?
We could have kept it going. It was just an ethical thing that I had of watching these kids play this game endlessly and then just questioning what I wanted my impact to be on life. And we had enough money at the time to launch it on Android, and that's when the money would have really been big.
Right.
But I couldn't do it. I could not let this thing survive. It was, so just to give you an idea. So it had this is how stupid this thing is.
Yeah.
It had 3 segments, 3 environments that you would run in. Each environment had 12 segments, and the algorithm that I wrote would put one of these segments in a row.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose that I was trying to do is speed up the characters running, like microseconds at a time, the longer they played. And eventually the character would be going too fast and they'd die.
Right.
And when they died, they would go to this screen where an ad was displayed to go download another very addictive app.
Sure.
And if you would watch it, then you would get coins. that you could then use to like put on a new outfit or try a new trick in the game.
Yeah.
But the whole purpose of this app was to get them to die so they could see this ad.
Right.
And that's when I realized this will not be my legacy.
So what I'm hearing from you is that there is a good opportunity for someone to build a parkour game right now.
Yes.
It's available.
It's open and available. It's wide open.
Wide open.
Yes.
The Hardcore Parkour app is available for somebody out there.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was your first entrance, and one of the things that I have really loved about getting to know you over the last couple of years is there is this like high level of ethics that's part of your life.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were working really hard at Nightingale. You talk about this really, beautiful idea that Nightingale had, come over and work on the admissions part. So I'd love for you to sort of set the table with what that idea was at the start when they brought you on.
Yeah. And this was a new introduction of doing good in the world. Nightingale College represents that in my life of like, just like you said, what impact did I want to have? And Nightingale originally had talked about this massive demand for nurses across the country. And there was a very, very high wait list in a lot of the schools. And in Utah in particular, back then, there were some community colleges and universities that would make these kids wait year over year, and they would have to keep applying, and they weren't moving anywhere. They would take more general education, or they would put them on this guaranteed acceptance list, and you would go to school in like 5 to 7 years from now. You would be in the next open enrollment, they called it.
Right.
And I looked at that, and my sister actually, she was trying to become a nursing. She was trying to become a nurse, and eventually became a nurse. But I looked at that, and I was like, "There's something utterly wrong with the system."
Yeah.
You've got a need across our country for nurses, and yet the barrier is schools don't have the resources or the ability to take on the number of nurses needed in order to, fill the need that these, and which benefits all of us from health and all this. So I saw that as my first opportunity and looked at it and said, I actually think I have the resources and the influence that I could change this.
Yeah.
And the original owners of Nightingale had that same kind of idea. It didn't really take off until a year into our operations. Nightingale was bought out, and we had this amazing VC firm that came in. They brought with them this really incredible CEO, Mikkel Schneider, you know him. And it was then when we started to understand not only just helping Utah, but like taking it to scale, leading out as an example about how do we take this concept of solving the nursing shortage and really clarifying that problem and saying, how can we figure this out nationwide? And that was really when Nightingale became the story that it was.
Yeah. So you originally started in admissions, which is a sales operations. At the time, was marketing underneath that admissions role, or who was taking that role?
So marketing was outsourced from the college to a firm, and I was this quasi middle ground because I was also peddling the school up and down the Wasatch Front. So I was giving presentations to all of these hospitals, trying to explain to them what Nightingale was as a new intro to Utah. When we had this transition in ownership is when I had looked at what I had accomplished in the app world, internet marketing, and we were experimenting with such unique digital media in traffic flows and, just it was so different than what was going on at colleges. They were still running late night ads.
Direct mail, a lot of direct
mail. And I looked at this opportunity in the education space and said, I have, again, the influence in the team that we could really make this change. And so I proposed to the new CEO that I basically delete everything Nightingale had done from a marketing standpoint and restart our brand from using this digital media platform.
Using your marketing
My
operation that you had started. And so did Nightingale hire you as a company to do that, or did you come on as the CEO? Did you start as the marketer and then have your team kind of be outsourced from?
Originally we had, because it was like an experiment, we had kept it under one of my outsourced companies. But the success of that eventually led to like an employee buyout. I
Yeah.
had to resolve my conflict of interest,
Right.
obviously, as
Right.
as it worked.
Right. I was curious about that. Yeah.
And I had to allow that team to eventually, take over and run it. And some of those original individuals are still with us today. They still are engaged with part of Nightingale's success.
Those the developers that you have and marketers in Romania, those ones.
Yeah.
I've heard Rick, who works for you, just talk unbelievably how great they are.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It is incredible. I mean, the world before I worked with outsourcing, the world was way too large, right? But as you start working outsourcing, you realize just how small it is and how connected you can be to top talent locally, but also across the world.
Yeah, at Modern 8, we use this outsourced team in the Philippines a lot, and they are like the smartest, funniest group of people, and I love working with them just because like they're so much more talented than you would ever even expect. Right? Yeah. Okay, so this is 2011, 2012. And Mikkel came on in 2011, if I remember.
Yeah, right? 2012 is when he
and he is a really great story, and we've talked about him before in various places. But maybe tell a little bit about his background, because I think that leans into where Nightingale has gone in the last 10 years.
Yeah, he has, like you said, he has this incredible story. He's an immigrant that came over and to the United States, started with, you can't even imagine how little they had, and became a nurse here in the United States, and wanted to, and he's somebody, his great gift is that I have just admired from the very beginning, his ability to challenge the status quo of any system and relentlessly pursue that change is quite phenomenal to be a part of that story. And he has every step of the way, whether it was when he was a nurse, whether it was when he was, a manager, a nurse manager, or whether when he went back to school and he ended up going to Berkeley and got his MBA. And he's run other nursing programs, but he has consistently challenged the status quo and decided that what is going on is just no longer acceptable. And he's been a great voice of change his whole life, but truly came from like nothing.
Yeah. Just an unbelievable human.
Right? And not only a great human, but just his love for humans.
Yeah.
Is also what drives him, of just making this world a better place and better humanity. He's a huge advocate of health. It's been that's been his vision, and he's been able to realize that with obviously Nightingale College at the pinnacle.
Okay, so let me jump forward a couple of years. So maybe 3 years ago, you called Modern 8, and we came and met you in your offices, and I had no idea who was the leader because you were all joking around in red T-shirts that day. And again, like, I still look back and I think I would have never guessed that Mikkel was the one who was the CEO in that meeting, but apparently he was. But so at the time when I came in, you were more involved in a different role than the marketing. You kind of had some marketing responsibilities, but you had some other roles. So tell me the path from like that, from 2012 to 2019, 2020.
Yeah, so I had become the director of marketing through this shift, and had kind of let go of admissions when they had come back to me and said, "Hey, would you stay with admissions and be the director of both of these functions?" Yeah. But as we grew, my main charge was I was given the charge to try to figure out how to, with the other team members, how do we solve the nursing shortage?
Yeah.
And that question is part of marketing, but there is a lot of logistical, there's regulations that's happening. We have accreditors that were limiting our growth and where we could grow. And it got me into a space where I was really doing a lot of business development, new business development.
Yeah.
And from that point, I was trying to figure out how to position the school so that it wasn't just another, it just wasn't another school. It's not just about nursing. It's about, what does that nurse shortage represent? And what we ultimately found out through this process was that the real client was the healthcare systems. And if we really wanted to push it even further, it was the care that these healthcare systems are promising their community. And by not having the nurse numbers, they couldn't meet that demand.
Yeah.
Hence, we have a very specific role in meeting that. And so as I looked at that, I started to work with these healthcare partners in setting up new business opportunities and new partnerships. And we basically developed a new distance education model, a new blended distance education model through this relationship between me and these partners. I was still overseeing marketing and admissions at the time, but it was through this new business arm, and we eventually called it the Nightingale Network.
Yeah.
That we were building, but ultimately that was, and I had some incredible people that were working around me that really made this happen. But that is basically what I was doing, as I was figuring out the operations of how to bring distance education, how to solve the real problem I was trying to solve is the geographic proliferation of education.
Yeah.
How do we keep access open to the most rural community that needs maybe even just one nurse?
Right.
And most traditional models, they won't go there.
Yeah.
For that. You have to have at least 20 to 50 enrollments per semester to even break even.
Right.
So the problem that I was trying to solve is the nursing shortage, but it was a question of access. It was a question of opportunity. And so I was involved heavily in designing and partnering with these hospital systems. So yeah, I was kind of part of operations.
Yeah. You know,
awesome.
One of the stories that I heard you tell a couple years ago was one that I actually think about a lot. And you had talked about, you got kind of put into this role by Mikkel about, how to do this. And you said, look, I don't think I can do this with the knowledge I have now.
Yeah.
And so during this whole part where you're trying to solve the nursing shortage in the world, which is not a small task, you decide to go back to school, right?
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about what it was that you were looking for, what that role was that you had taken on that you didn't feel like you could meet, and how that new schooling kind of helped.
Yeah, the challenge that I was given, again, was scaling this to a national level. And at the time, I don't want to sound ungrateful for my biology degree.
You can sound ungrateful.
But I don't remember this being part of that, any courses, of how to scale an organization. And I felt very inadequate. And when I, like you mentioned, I originally came to Mikkel basically asking for my boss. I said, we need somebody. I was sitting in these board meetings. There were things being asked and put on my plate that I'd literally walk away thinking like, I'm going to go to the library and read a book. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know where to go.
Right.
I don't know if other people feel this in their career, but there are times when
yes, they do.
You're faking it, and it's like, but it's beyond faking. It's
right.
like, I don't even know where even to begin.
Right.
It was, and so I went to, again, the CEO and said, hey, I feel very inadequate. I don't understand how to do this. And it helped that we didn't have any money.
Right. Right.
At the time.
Right.
It did help that was their case at the time. But he told me, well, then he goes, he challenged me to get more education.
Yeah.
He said, clearly you need to have some kind of greater business awareness. And so we agreed on going back and getting my MBA. And he gave me until August to figure it out and get enrolled into a program. And then it needed to be an executive program so that I could do it on the weekends. And so that was the challenge, and I accepted it. And that journey in itself is a crazy experience because I wouldn't consider myself an academic in any way. I had okay grades, but executive MBA programs are quite difficult to get into.
Yeah. And you went to BYU again for that EMBA?
Yeah. So they at the time, they were building out their Salt Lake facility and were inviting these incredible professors. They were kind of like doing this heavy recruiting to build out their MBA program. They were inviting professors from all of these really great schools.
Yeah.
Because it's associated with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So they were pulling in members from
all
these
over.
Different schools. And the professors they were bringing into that executive program were just incredible teachers. And so there was a great value there. And, I'll say this though, they sent me a denial letter. Okay.
Yeah. This is one of my favorite parts of the story.
I'm glad you're going to tell you this. Yeah. I got to tell this. So they sent me a denial letter. So they had put me on this wait list, which is the whole thing I'm trying to solve in nursing school, right? So, first they make me take the standardized exam. So I go take the GMAT. And probably today carry the lowest GMAT score in the history of any person to ever attend BYU Business School. And I know that I am that dumb because I retook the GMAT and got the same score after studying for like 3 months. Okay. But so they put me on this wait list, and eventually they end up sending me this denial letter. And I was so determined to figure out what I didn't know that I ended up calling the program director of the MBA program and saying, hey, you sent me this denial letter. I think this is a mistake. You're not going to want to make this official until you meet me. And I don't know what it was, but he agreed. He was like, well, now I'm curious.
Yeah.
And his name was Dr. Bingham. And so he goes, well, come down to Provo and I'd like to meet you. And I went down, and for an hour, we sat in his office, and I just laid out the struggle that I was facing against Nightingale.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what they're asking me to do. I need help. You're the closest thing that I know of to turn to. And I laid it out for him, and he was like, and he brought up the GMAT. He said, well, I hate to tell you this, Mr. Tanner, but you would be like the lowest person we've ever accepted from a GMAT score. And he goes, I don't think academically you're going to do well in this MBA program. And I said, okay, I understand that. What do I got to do to get accepted?
Yeah.
And he told me at the time Harvard was doing these move at your own pace business courses. They were testing them.
Yeah.
And he said, so this is what I'll do. I'll give you these 3 courses. It was stats. There was some general business course and English. And he says, if you can pass these and get the certificates for them, then I'll allow you to start. And that was on Thursday, and classes started on Monday. And so I basically pulled a bunch of all-nighters and enrolled in these courses and studied through the night. And I took one class at a time, and just, it was crazy. And ended up, they were basically were these courses, and then you'd have to pass this test.
Yeah.
And you could get this certificate saying that you qualified. And so anyways, I showed up Monday morning with the 3 certificates in hand and handed them to Dr. Bingham. And he said, welcome to school, Mr. Tanner. Have a seat. And that was it. That's how I got enrolled.
It's an unbelievable story. Not just like for you as a human being, the fortitude and the excitement and the ability to go and craft your own story is kind of amazing. But for me, the thing that I think about it a lot is like, in my life, when I think about that story, and I've heard it, this is maybe the second or third time I've heard it, is the ability for myself to think, what am I accepting that I shouldn't accept?
Yeah.
Like, where am I saying I'm going to take this when I shouldn't?
Yeah.
And I actually think that it's one of the best stories I've heard in a long time.
Oh, thanks.
So anyway, keep telling that one.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to marketing. So we show up 2-3 years ago. You're at a crossroads at Nightingale. You have now figured out this thing that you were trying to figure out.
Yeah.
How to do distance education in nursing, and now you need to go and expand it. So tell me where you were, and I think it was the start of 2021. Is that right? So tell me where you were at the start of 2021, and kind of what led to that idea of having to go through a rebrand.
Yeah, we had successfully, like you had mentioned, we had successfully figured out this distance education model. And again, the MBA program paid major dividends into what that meant and how to expand a company and do all those things. That was wonderful education. But we were expanding. I don't know if this is the right order to do things.
Yeah.
We had successfully figured out how to do distance education. Nobody knew about us.
Right.
It was an incredible success story that nobody, if we were to shut down at that point in time, would have ever remembered us. We were so incognito, and the way in which we were doing digital media, people were finding us. We were closing those deals. They were like, okay, I've never heard of you, but it sounds like this is an opportunity that would fit my needs. And we had just brought on a director of marketing, Rick Bentz, and he has incredible experience, right? Great history.
That's all he's done is education, marketing.
Seasoned marketing, marketer, and brilliant human being. And came on and looked at what I had overseen and built and was like, you're kind of missing a very large piece.
Yeah.
And it is this branding. And I had devalued branding for a long time because I was like, listen, the system's working. were
You were
operating.
profitable at that point.
And revolutionizing the way distance
It was
education and
working.
nursing was working. And I thought, eventually they'll figure it out. I didn't realize the power of having a brand associated with, at least that's well defined when you enter new markets.
Yeah.
And I unfortunately had devalued that in my own marketing mix.
Sure.
And Rick is the one that introduced us to Modern 8 and said, "Hey, this may be something you want to consider." And after meeting you guys, it was like I see where the gap was now, and I saw it back then that I had really overvalued what we had built, and it needed a brand, it needed a story. Which that's where we were when we invited you guys to come.
And so you'd now gotten to this place where you'd figured out how to do the thing that needed to solve nursing. And we came in and helped you work a little bit with the branding and that story and the messaging and, some of the design and some of the wording. But tell me what's happened since then. How has the new branding and the new messaging, as you've gone to try to build that, build the pipeline of nurses in this nation and eventually the world, tell me where that's gone in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it started really, after going through the exercises with Modern 8, it not only did it give us the messaging, but what it did for each executive, for each person that was part of that process, it gave us a unified voice. We were using the same language. We were speaking the same initiatives. Like, we understood how cross-functionally one person's efforts was going to influence another person's efforts. That is something that branding did from a unification standpoint.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was a phenomenal period of time. And in this rebrand, we also discovered that there were some operational that we eventually called divisions, but there were some operations that didn't quite have their place.
Yeah.
They were confusing the base operations of the college. And these eventually, through this rebranding process, came out as Nightingale Innovations.
Right.
And then Nightingale Solutions. And Nightingale Solutions was going to address a kind of this different clientele of not the learners and the students. It was going to really focus in on the healthcare partners and their needs, because they were struggling to get good education also for nurses that have graduated and are since in the field. So Nightingale Solutions became that. Nightingale Innovations was this incubator of research and development. And it helped us to separate out through this rebrand, separate out these divisions that honestly were kind of causing a little confusion inside of the college. And once we understood the role that each one of these divisions played, it really did help us advance in new initiatives and do it safely without putting the college or the education at risk.
Right.
Which is at utmost is our priority, right?
Yeah.
Like, we want to make sure the learners have this incredible experience. What has happened since then has been kind of an up and down. When we announced this to the organization, and I think
you kind of went through a reorg a couple of months ago, right?
Yeah.
That kind of split out the college and innovations, and if I remember correctly, there were 4 different groups. What are those 4 groups again?
Yeah, there was the support services,
Okay.
which is really anyone who's not learner facing.
Right.
Then there was the college,
Right.
and then it was Nightingale College, Nightingale Innovations, which is the research development, curriculum design, like very, very forward thinking in nursing education. This is a wonderful division. And then Nightingale Solutions, which is about bringing solutions to healthcare partners from what we've learned from the college and innovations. We call this whole group Nightingale Education Group.
Okay.
And so, but I really, if you were to put me in one of those, I'm in the support group.
Right. So then all the functional people who are not learner facing are now supporting those 3 other arms of the college.
Yes. Yeah, correct.
And then that's when you took on that title of CMO, right? Is when that split happened.
Yeah. I've been the acting CMO, for whatever, but because I was so heavily involved in business development,
right,
I have had my hand in all of these things. Since the divide, I have taken on a very finite and focused role as the chief marketing officer.
So I guess my big question then is, like, what's working for Nightingale College right now? Where are you at in that? What channels are you pulling? How are you doing marketing across the nation?
Yeah, at our core, it has always been because of what we built from the very beginning, our ability to have an online presence from SEO to, PPC and retargeting and, really understanding which of the keywords that people search, which of those individuals are really going to be successful here at Nightingale College if they become our student. That is our core marketing. But what has been added to that, which is again the sweet part of the story, is our public relationships arm, our communications arm has been built out, led by Shannon Michaels.
She's amazing.
She is incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a seasoned...
That was a solid hire.
Yes. I mean, seasoned communications individual that honestly is one of my mentors and inspires me just every day.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, I care for her a lot. She's an incredible leader. But the watching the communications arm about, what messaging are we putting in? How are we being part of the story of just nursing in general?
Yeah.
Which again, you guys challenged us in many ways is like, are you part of just nursing education conversations? And she's really opened up a lot of different opportunities for us to be part of the conversation and persuading public opinion and how people really just feel about the nursing shortage in general. So we have a great PR communications. A lot of that is, learner stories, partnership stories.
Yeah.
Like what is our true mission impact and how is it being realized in each of these states that we're in? Then we have our marketing arm that has, it's built out from not only digital spaces, but now they're engaged in, we have one individual that works for us that does nothing but partner with healthcare systems.
Yeah.
And how do we do joint marketing campaigns just to build awareness around nursing education?
Right.
And about becoming a nurse? Are we shaping the way people feel about the career of nursing? And so we have that going on. We've got some incredible design people. We've got social media groups.
Yeah.
And so I would say that at the core, we're still doing a lot of digital media, but there is this new incredible message that I think is being given out from Nightingale.
And how's the response been? I know that there's this, you were facing a lot of like pushback and, like you're trying to change the world and some people don't like that. So how's the response been the last year and a half of, trying to get to the forefront of changing nursing education?
Yeah, nursing education is complicated. It's there's layers because of it's so highly regulated.
Yeah.
And education in general is just a mess. It's so regulated.
Right.
It's very difficult. I would say that we're a positive influence in changing any kind of system that is so highly regulated and has got its heels so entrenched in tradition.
Yeah.
For good reason.
Yep.
Okay.
Saving
when
people's
nurses,
lives.
when nurses innovate, bad things could happen. So I get why that industry is the way it is. I get why education is entrenched in incredible tradition. But it doesn't negate the fact that there are problems and we've got to radically transform what we're doing. Nightingale's a voice for that transformation in a good, positive way. We are trying to invite other schools, boards of nursing to at least take the space to consider what we're doing from an impact and possibly think that we can have traditional schools, but COVID proved out having only one type of education platform can be detrimental.
Yeah.
If something like a pandemic comes through and basically says nurse students can't go into hospitals.
Right.
And so, I think, because of our desire to constantly challenge the status quo, we introduced virtual reality into the education platforms. We've just pushed the boundaries of saying we got to do this better. And I think we're a good force. We're not the answer for everything. That's not the point, but we want to be part of the story for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that again, this isn't necessarily about marketing, but I do think that one of the real values that I came away from thinking about Nightingale College is similar to your story about getting into your executive MBA program, that, test takers who don't score as highly on tests don't necessarily make them bad nurses. Yeah. Like you may not have been the best test taker, but you were probably a really amazing MBA student, And so like that real goal that you had of taking people who may not have been a traditional school student, but ended up being thriving nurses, I think is really this beautiful story that I'm sure has resonated really well across the nation, right?
Oh yeah. This the people that are coming to us are reshaping the way nursing's done. And, you and I were kind of joking about bedside manner before we came in here.
Yeah.
And the resiliency of the Nightingale student, one, because they have been told no so many ways
Yeah, right.
in their journey. And then on top of that, that our society doesn't always create easy pathways for socioeconomic, demographic diversity in nursing.
Yeah.
These pathways are hard for these populations, and they need somebody who's going to open some doors, create some pathways so that they can actually achieve the success of being a nurse. And as a society, we need them.
Yeah.
Like, we desperately need diversity inside of nursing. When nurses represent the populations they serve, health outcomes go up. So it's not just diversity for diversity's sake. It is a proven fact that we need to have a diverse nursing population, and the fact that we need to draw from these populations in order to improve health of all of our communities.
Yeah. Local populations are going to end up doing a better job treating their neighbors and friends and family, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are getting towards the end. So the last question that we typically ask is, give us some restaurants, bars, coffee shop recommendations.
Well,
you said you only go to one place a month, so this is going to be easy. But tell me a little bit, where should people go around this valley?
Okay. So again, take it for what it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm not that.
Okay.
But if I do go out,
Okay.
I am I love fish, and because we don't have fish in our house for some reason, but I love it. So, but fried fish for some reason is like my cheat thing. So if I could go to like Catch and get fish and chips in Salt Lake, or if I go to Slapfish and get like their ultimate fish taco with a bowl of like clam chowder, like that's my good place. That's my happy place.
Catch or Slapfish and some fried fish and chips.
Some fried fish and chips, and that's That's
are you a tartar sauce guy? You love all that tartar sauce?
Give it to me.
You're such a Utahn.
I am.
Love it so much.
This is my
You
home.
need to go. You know where the best fish and chips is at Current. Have you been to Current?
No, I haven't yet.
Oh my goodness, you got to go. Fried fish, just great fries, a ton of different sauces.
You already sold me. I'm in.
Oh no, it's the best place.
I'm in.
You're gonna love it.
I'm in.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for being here, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. By Subjects is a production of Modern 8 Agency in Silicon Slopes. Executive producers are Alicia Smith and Peter Stevenson. Editor and producer is Dave Meekum. Video production by Connor Mitchell. Development production by Eric Dahl. Production management by Shelby Sandlin. Original music composed by Josh Johnson. Website designed by Modern 8. Please make sure to follow and share the show with your friends and your enemies. Thanks for joining us.